What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today we've got some brand spanking new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that has just gone live, revealing official information. And holy crap, it's a big one this week. Bungie just unveiled the buffs and nerfs coming to the mid-season update arriving next month. Guys, both the PvE and PvP metas are about to change, and so let's get started. But just before we do,
guys, they're after me, okay? They sent the hounds after me, but I won't be silenced, all right? They don't want me to say what I'm gonna say here. It's about the Manscaped trimmers, okay? This is the new Lawnmower 5.0. They advertise these for shaving down there, but everyone who has one of these, they just use them on their faces too. I mean, it's a good quality razor. Why wouldn't you just use, I mean, you can wash it easily. It's waterproof. I hear the hounds. Ah!
oh hey, let me show you the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. It comes with the Weed Whacker for nose and ear hair. It also comes with the Crop Preserver and Crop Soother to keep things fresh. And the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This thing has an improved light as well as an improved blade that's tougher on hair but smoother on skin. It's great for shave, not your face. No one does it on their face too. Ha 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 ha. It also comes with a new foil blade so you can get a closer, smoother shave than ever. Not to mention, if you click the link in the description down below, they might let me go. I mean, you'll get 20% off your purchase, free international shipping, and 2 free gifts. The Manscaped travel case, awesome if I ever get out of here, as well as the Manscaped boxers. They're so comfortable, especially when you've been trapped in a room for a long time. So guys, definitely click that link, please. Alright, now first things first, what's been going on this week for Destiny 2? Well, if you're someone who hasn't bought every single Destiny 2 expansion, here's your chance to get them at a massive discount, because through the Humble Bundle, you can actually get every single Destiny 2 expansion and the 30th anniversary pack for around $40 US, which is an insane discount from what you would usually get on something like Steam or just buying them normally, right? In fact, you can actually change how many items are in the bundle, and if you go down to the 2-item bundle for $8 American, you can get Shadowkeep and the Forsaken pack. So again, some massive discounts here, and part of the proceeds are going to charity. So when your friends say, bro, did you really buy all the expansions for this dead game? You can say, I was donating to charity, bruh. Okay, now moving on from there, let's get to the brand new information within the TWAB. And starting with those balancing changes, first of all, we have abilities. So for Threaded Spectre, here's what they're doing. Now, Ensnaring Slam, they're reducing the class ability regeneration penalty duration by 50% in PvE activities. And then specifically for Threaded Spectre, it now applies the same class ability regeneration penalty used by Ensnaring Slam when the player creates a Threaded Spectre, and increase Threaded Spectre detonation damage by 25% versus PvE combatants to kind of account for that. Now, moving on from there to just Threadlings in general, because they've been very potent within the Crucible. So, for Threadlings, they've increased the aim assist shape size from 0.41 meters to 0.5 meters. This makes aim assist more effective against them, making them easier to shoot, okay? Then they've reduced base damage versus enemy players from 40 to 35, and damage with Thread of Evolution equipped reduced versus enemy players from 45 to 38.5. They've also fixed an issue where groups of Threadlings were not reliably chain detonating when one was destroyed. So if you see a group of them, you're supposed to be able to shoot one and they all kind of blow up. Then they've also fixed an issue where Threadlings sometimes did not play their non-damaging destruction performance when destroyed by enemy fire, resulting in them appearing to blip out of existence. Now, Bungie does say, we realize these changes are not localized to Threadrunner and will also affect Broodweaver potency in the Crucible. To compensate for this, we're pulling some other buffs forward that we originally planned to ship with the final shape to keep the power of their overall kit in roughly the same place. So they're basically going to buff Arcane Needle to account for that. So for Arcane Needle, which is the Strand Warlock melee, they've increased the aim assistance angle by about 50%. They've increased the aim assistance fall-off distance from 30 to 45 meters. They've increased the tracking angular velocity by around 5%. They've increased the length of the projectile's tracking shape, the shape in front of the projectile that it uses to find targets, and they fixed an issue where uncharged melees while Arcane Needle is equipped resulted in the player appearing to freeze in a melee pose. So it's really just they've massively increased like tracking and aim assistance. It should be a lot easier to get hits with Arcane Needle. Moving on from there, we have some changes to Restoration and Radiant. These are arguably the most important keywords in the entire game. So they've fixed an issue where the maximum duration of Restoration and Radiant buffs was being incorrectly stored, resulting in the buff timers resetting to their initial duration instead of their maximum when the buff was applied. This also resolves similar issues with shorter restoration sources like sunspots with Sol Invictus aspect. Now, alongside these changes, they're also adjusting two fragments. First of all, Ember of Mercy. It now extends your current restoration duration by 2 seconds when a fire sprite is collected. If you don't already have restoration active, collecting a fire sprite grants restoration with a 2-second duration. This restoration extension is increased to 3 seconds when Ember of Solace is equipped. Then for Ember of Empyrean, they've increased the maximum duration extension from 12 to 15 seconds, and they've reworked the duration extension granted with each solar defeat. So previously, it always granted a 4-second duration extension regardless of the type of target defeated. Now the duration extension varies based on the strength of the target. Defeating an elite or weaker combatant will result in less time than what's in the game currently, but defeating a champion or stronger combatants results in a greater extension. Moving on from there, we have some solar ability buffs, and first up we have Consecration for the Titan. They've increased the travel distance of the initial ground follow, a projectile that travels along a surface like Thermite Grenade's Wave or the Cold Snap Grenade Seeker, from 18 to 20 meters. They've increased the height of the Slam Ground Follow detonation by about 1 meter. They've increased the travel distance of the Slam Ground Follow from 16 to 20 meters, and they've increased the travel speed of the Slam Ground Follow, including the Pyrogale Gauntlet's enhanced version, from 16 to 24 meters per second. So no increase in damage, but it's just a bigger area of effect. And also for Gunpowder Gamble for the Hunter, they've reduced the maximum self-damage from 144 all the way down to 80. Now, moving on from there, we get into the weapon changes. So for weapon archetypes here, heavy burst hand cannons, right? And the only one right now is the new Warden's Law. However, they've corrected an issue that was causing heavy burst hand cannons to have 25% less aim assist than other hand cannons when hip firing or airborne on mouse and keyboard. So they should just hit more consistently now. And then for bows, these have been the bane of people's existence in PvP. Here's what's changing. Reduce the auto aim fall off distance start and end by 15%. i.e. aim assistance will be less effective at long range, and they've reduced the maximum auto aim cone size by 5%, so they're just not going to hit as consistently. We ship the Breakneck with 1 fewer perk than intended in the right column. Oops, they're adding target lock to the Breakneck's second trait column. That's weird, but very interesting. Like, what the heck? Breakneck is a fantastic auto rifle, especially when you can get it with Subsistence plus Onslaught, like I did a video on that. However, like, honestly, target lock is pretty darn good. Now, moving on from there, for lightweight scout rifles, they're actually increasing the base damage by 5%, and they say that will reduce the proportion of crits required for the optimum time to kill from 4 crits to 3 crits 1 body. So if you get a body shot mixed in, you're still going to get a 4-shot kill. Very interesting. Moving on from there, for sniper rifles, they've reduced the auto-aim cone size by 10%, so a bit of a nerf there. Next up, we have some changes to rocket launchers, which is huge because in PvE, it's a rocket launcher DPS meta using Gjallarhorn, so they're actually buffing some of the underused rocket launcher archetypes. First of all, for precision rocket launchers, they've increased the reserve ammo by 2 extra rounds in total, and reduced the damage penalty from -10 to -5%. So precision frame rockets just got quite a bit better. And then for high impact frame rockets, they've increased the reserve ammo by 2 and also now deals more detonation damage and less impact damage for roughly the same total damage. This should make them more effective versus groups or when getting splash damage on a target with a near miss. And the above changes also affect Deathbringer, Gjallarhorn, and Truth. So very, very interesting. And does that mean you get 2 more reserve ammo with Gjallarhorn? Are you serious? That could be, huge for the PvE meta. Moving on from there, speaking of the PvE DPS, and we have some changes to heavy grenade launchers. They've increased the reserve ammo by a minimum of 6 rounds and a maximum of 10 rounds depending on the grenade launcher. They've reduced spike grenades impact damage buff from 50% all the way down to 12.5%. Wow. With the below changes, this reduces the total spike grenades damage from about 8% to 3%, making it less mandatory. Alright, so not a fan of that, but then the next line is increased direct impact damage by 10%. Combined with the above change, this brings non-spike grenade launchers almost up to the level of spike grenade launchers and very slightly reduces damage output with a spike grenade launcher. And they've also increased the detonation damage by 5%. In PvP, this is offset with a reduction to the detonation damage, no overall change. So, pretty interesting. Basically, like before, if you were going after a PvE heavy grenade launcher, if it didn't have spike, it was just an auto delete. This is actually going to change things to the point where it may be worth considering other things instead of spike grenades. Remember, in that same column, you have stuff that will increase the reload speed and so on, and that could be very, very useful. Moving on from there, we also have some buffs to the wave frame heavy grenade launcher. They've increased the damage by 20%, which is huge, and they've increased the wave width by 40%, which is also huge. So massive buff to that. If you have that wave frame grenade launcher from Neomuna, take it out and try it out, because those are some big numbers there. Moving on from there, caster frame swords. Nobody uses those, so they've reduced the heavy attack energy cost from 5 to 4, and they've increased the heavy attack damage by 16%. Not nothing, but will they see play? I'm not quite sure. Moving on from there, guys, we enter into some exotic changes. So, for the Vigilance Wing, it now has a deterministic recoil pattern, which means every time you shoot it, it will recoil, off to the right. For example, every single time, it's not going to surprise you by veering to the left another time, right? So it's going to be a lot easier to control and learn the pattern for. So for PvP, that can matter quite a bit. Then, for Vex Mythoclast, they've increased the aim down sight damage fall-off scalar from 1.5 to 1.7 times, so it is going to get a lot more range from this. Moving on from there, we have the Wish Ender. True Sight will now deactivate if you leave ADS or hold it longer than 3 seconds. To reactivate, you must fully redraw the bow. So, pretty big PvP nerf there. Then for Edge of Action, they've increased its damage resistance in PvE against all combatants except bosses to 85% and increased its damage resistance against bosses to 15%.
Then we have the Manticore Void Submachine Gun. Players must now be airborne for 0.5 seconds and deal damage with the weapon to activate the perk. This prevents accidental activation while running down stairs or doing small jumps. We gave it a special reload to quickly disengage the anti-gravity thrusters, so swapping weapons will continue to disengage as well. Teraba also receives this special reload animation. Okay, while anti-grav thrusters are engaged, combatants will be less accurate when targeting the player, similar to the always-on-time Sparrow, so PvE combatants will just miss more often. And then with the Catalyst, final blows and sustained damage with the Manticore while airborne will grant a Void Overshield and return ammo to the magazine? Are we whipping out the Manticore from the vault after this update? Like, maybe, dude. Next up, we have the X-Dirus. They've increased the impact damage against PvE enemies by 50%, and the detonation damage is unaffected. So the total damage increase works out to be around 20%, and they've increased the maximum rate of fire by 17%. I kind of already like this weapon. Like, you can do some pretty crazy arc synergies with it because it just automatically gives you amplified if you get a kill with the Catalyst. So like, this is pretty insane. Then we have some changes to perks. Heal Clip. Now it grants Cure ×2 to the player while still granting Cure ×1 to nearby allies. Wow, that's a pretty big chunk of healing. Then for Trench Barrel, it can now be activated by dealing damage with ranged melee attacks. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. You can get that, for example, the Warlock melee off at a distance, getting close, and get that Trench Barrel damage. Then Barrel Constrictor. They say it was fairly experimental, so here's the changes. Once activated, it no longer deactivates upon firing a shot, and it lasts for 7.5 seconds now, and it buffs all shots fired during that time frame. Enhanced Barrel Constrictor lasts for 8.5 seconds. Then for Loose Change. So, applying a subclass 3.0 debuff now grants plus 20 aim assistance stat and 20% reduced aim down sights movement speed penalty in addition to the existing 50% plus 50 reload stat. Applying another debuff now refreshes the duration. I still don't think anyone's going to use this, to be honest. Then Dual Loader. They've removed the reload speed penalty completely, and they've changed the wording of the perk description to make it more clear that it increases the number of shots reloaded, so we can now apply it to other weapon types without confusion in the future. So, Dual Loader, especially for right now for shotguns, you just, every time you would do that little reload animation, you just put in 2 rounds now. So it basically doubles your reload speed with no downside. All right. Moving on from there, we have some changes to Tech's Balanced Stock. And they say this is because they have a couple of Tech's Mechanica Legendary Weapons shipping in the March update, so when this update goes live. So it now grants plus 20 range and a plus 1.5 degree hipfire precision cone angle in addition to its other effects, making it easier to land follow-up crits with hipfire. 20 extra range is huge. Then for Haka Breach Armaments, Deconstruct, and Sundering, it now works against Void Souls, Strand Clones, Cabal Projection Shields, and Brigs. Then for Haka Breach Armaments specifically, the bonus damage versus Stasis Crystals reduced from 85% to 60% to match other constructs. Then for the Sundering origin trait, it can now trigger on Shield Break in addition to Final Blows on vehicles and constructs. We've added a small reload speed scaler while reducing the charge rate benefit to account for the higher uptime. Then for Hatchling, activation requires are no longer locked into the archetype in terms of precision or non-precision kills. Instead, the perk will trigger with either a precision kill or 3 non-precision kills no matter what. And I wonder if that stacks. For example, if you get 1 normal kill, and then your 3rd kill is a precision kill, will it give you 1 for the precision and another threadling for getting 3 kills in total, at the same time? If that can stack on top of each other, so it's every 3 kills you get a threadling, and every precision kill pretty much, you also trigger a threadling. Maybe there's an internal timer that would kind of ruin this, but I think overall it's just going to mean more threadling spawns from Hatchling overall. Then
for target lock. Now activates later in the magazine for SMGs at 20% instead of 12.5%, so the damage buff will swing primary weapon gunfights less often. So huge nerf for target lock for PvP, specifically for SMGs. Then Envious Assassin. Each activation is now capped at 100% of magazine size instead of 150%, and the maximum overflow is now 3 times the magazine size instead of 4, so nerf for Envious Assassin. Next up, we have Bait and Switch. They've reduced the damage bonus from 35% down to 30%. So this was like the go-to for rocket launchers, especially for PvE DPS. Now, maybe not as much, because at 30%, you've got to calculate the time it takes, like mid DPS phase, to cycle through all your weapons. Like, it's going to be an interesting one. I doubt you're going to be throwing away your god rolls with Bait and Switch, but definitely, you may have to look at some alternatives now. Next up, we have some changes to a 1-2 punch. Now correctly deactivates after dealing damage with a powered melee. And then Deconstruct. Updated the perk description to correctly state that it pulls ammo from thin air, not reserves, and they fixed a bug preventing the perk from triggering when shooting an enemy Titan barricade. Now for mods, they say mod damage against mini bosses should have been part of boss spec, not major spec, so we've changed the mods to correct that. Okay, so boss spec, I guess, a little bit better now, and major spec a little bit worse now. Then we have some changes for the future. So this is going to be coming from the final shape and even beyond. So they say in the final shape, we're rebalancing many weapon types in PvE, buffing underperforming weapons and leaving most high performers untouched. Since we're looking at PvE weapon tuning anyway, over the course of the year of the final shape, we'll be looking at weapon mods that feel mandatory. And we've intended to make some changes that will increase player choice, particularly in PvE. We're also making substantial changes to several of the least used exotic weapons. We see a lot of requests for these. See if you can guess which exotics we've touched. And adjusting some perks, including a long requested change to chill clip, making it more viable to use on slower firing weapons. Now moving on from there, we are not quite done yet, because the next section is Crucible Sandbox. So they're actually going to make some changes to the PvP specific tuning for weapon types, exotic weapons, abilities, and special ammo generation. So these are going to be changes that only affect you when you're in a PvP environment, guys. So here's what they're doing. First of all, player health. They say we have 2 goals with the following increase to player health. It gives us far more granularity to balance our current and future sandbox elements, and it lets us decrease the relative lethality of multiple sandbox elements, so grenades and body shot damage, all at once and universally. So player health will be increased by 30 HP in base Crucible, so players will have 100 health up from 70 and 116 to 130 shield depending on the resilience. Wow. So, like, everyone's just going to be harder to kill? Like, this is going to completely change everything. I mean, like, stuff that would, hand cannons that would kill in 3 shots. Are they still going to kill in 3 shots? Like, this is crazy. Now, for ability cooldowns, guys, melee, grenade, and class ability cooldowns now have a 15% penalty applied to them in Crucible only. Super cooldowns now have a 20% penalty applied in Crucible only. Now, ability damage. For supers, they've increased the base super damage by 31%, somewhat to compensate for that health stuff. For melee, increase the base melee damage by 16%. Grenades, increased the arc flux grenade damage by 16%. Then for primary weapon archetypes, pulse rifles, auto rifles, sidearms, and scout rifles increase critical hit damage by 14%. Hand cannons increase crit damage by 10%, reduced body shot damage by 5%, reduced flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 12.5%, and by explosive payload by 10%, and submachine guns increase the crit damage by 12.5%, reduced body shot damage by 3%, bows reduced base damage by 15%. A lot of these changes, guys, are just going to be accounting for that health increase. Like hand cannon increased crit damage. Again, that's what I alluded to earlier. That's going to help them maintain a 3-shot kill, I would imagine, right? Then for special ammo acquisition. So they say you start every game, all game types including round-based modes like Dominion, with 2 kills worth of special ammo in your chosen weapon. Instead of 2 kills worth of special ammo being granted every time you respawn, you will earn more ammo by filling up a special ammo meter with points given for getting kills, assists, or completing objectives. Getting 100 points grants you 2 kills worth of special ammo for your chosen weapon. So here's the base points, like kills 23 points, assists 10 points, deaths 10, and I'm just going to put everything up so you can see all these point values right here instead of going over all of them. So huge change, massive change. You start with 2 rounds. When you lose them, you have to go and do stuff in the game. You have to get kills, assists, all that stuff. You know, will that create a snowballing effect so the players slaying out and getting kills will now just be getting the special, and the players getting slayed will get nothing to fight back? That's my worry initially, but we'll have to see. Now, we do have some general notes here. Kills from special ammo weapons and heavy ammo weapons do not grant any points towards special ammo meter progress, so maybe that would reduce that snowballing effect. Jumping off the map will subtract progress from the special ammo meter. Wow. Ammo is not dropped on death, and you will not lose the special ammo you have earned when you are defeated or are revived. Earned special ammo will carry over in between rounds, and swapping from double primary weapons to a special ammo weapon will reset your special ammo meter progress. Then we have some changes to special weapon archetypes. Trace rifles, shotguns, and fusion rifles, they've increased their base damage by 20%. And then for glaives, they've increased projectile damage by 20%, increased melee damage by 16%. Then for heavy weapon archetypes, heavy grenade launchers, they've reduced the detonation damage by 5%, and machine guns, they've increased their base damage by 20%. Next up, guys, we have exotic weapon changes, and again, these are specifically in PvP. For the Fighting Lion, they've decreased the damage versus players in Crucible by 20%. For Devil's Ruin, they've decreased the charge beam damage by 15%. For Crimson, they've reduced the flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 17.5%. For Forerunner, they've increased the damage versus players by 20%. And for Symmetry, increased revolution damage versus players by 16%. Wow, like, I really wonder how these changes are going to work out, because these are all massive. It seems like, you know, in a wide respect, they've brought countdown, you know, reduced ability cooldown, increased crit damage, all that stuff, to the normal Crucible. Like, that's what they were testing out before. So if you don't like countdown, I don't know, man. Like, we'll really have to see how this works out in the long run. Now, moving on from there, guys, if you haven't seen, Bungie gave away this awesome new emblem, and you can see the code for it right there below. So go to bungie.net, redeem that, and yeah, get that for free. Moving on from there, they say the next Trials map is going to be Dead Cliffs, as voted on by the community, and that is really about it, guys, for the main changes. And wow, what a massive TWAB today. Some really big changes. I think the PvE meta is going to be impacted certainly by those grenade launcher changes, as well as the rocket launcher changes, like high impact frames and precision frames just got a lot more viable. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Guys, that is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.